Hey everybody, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. I am Matthew, this is Watty's channel. Today we are continuing on with the WWF Hasbro review. So, in the first video, or first two videos I should say, we looked at the 1990 Series 1 release. So Series 1 did produce 12 figures, so we did have to break that down into multiple videos. I was really hoping to get these all done in one video. You know, each series has its own video, but with the sheer quantity with a lot of these figures, I just don't want to be coming out with like an hour-long video. So Series 2 is definitely the largest by volume series of all the 11 series that Hasbro did produce. So Series 1 was simply a 1990 release, Series 2 was a 1991 release, and then 92 through 94 you had multiple series released in each of those years. So 15 figures in Series 2. One of them is a repeat, and when we get to the tag teams, we'll look at that figure again. So the figures I pulled here, all the loose figures, these are all duplicates, so they're not part of my main display. So when I do pull the figures out, you might have broken fingers like a Ultimate Warrior here, or the action may not work. So that might be a possibility at some point when we do review the figures. But kind of like Series 1, a lot of these figures from Series 2 are figures I had as a kid, and for nostalgic reasons, that's why they mean a little bit more to me. And I'll point those figures out as we come across them. So in Series 1, we started off with Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, DiBiase. In Series 2, we're going to look at those exact same four characters, as they did have a second release, or a second figure released in Series 2. So the first one we're looking at is the Hulk Hogan Bear Hug version. So as kids, obviously we had the Series 1 Gorilla Press, and later on we did get the Series 2 Bear Hug Hogan. But this is something that I doubt any kid actually used. And you know how Hogan kind of bends over and he does the little, pump up that he does in the ring. So I can understand the pose. And with this particular figure, the Hulkster Hug is what they call it, I can understand the need to generate this type of pose. But here's the problem. It is essentially an unplayable figure. Did I use this as a kid? Yeah, you kind of have to. You kind of sit there, even the hands closed. I mean, I wasn't sitting there opening the arms with these figures. I basically, this was my punch. But again, there's not really much to anything you could do, outside giving a headlock and some punch to the face. Aesthetically, it is one of the best looking figures because of said pose and that little, that little pump that he does in the ring. But again, unplayable. It's essentially a worthless figure. We had it as kids. Did I use it sometimes? Sure. But 95% of the time, we just reverted back to the Series 1 Hulk Hogan. And, Series 2 Hulk Hogan and Series 3 Hulk Hogan are essentially the exact same figure. All they did in Series 3, that right there. And obviously, where this goes forward, the other ones go up and down, just like any of the arm raises for any of the other figures. Good looking figure. Hulk Hogan's your mega superstar. Of course, you're going to probably release him as many times as you possibly can. And outside of Macho Man, I think that was it. I think those were the only two figures that had, or only two characters that had 4 releases in the Hasbro run. Everyone else that had multiple figures, they were either 2 or 3. But good looking figure, just a bad pose, unplayable pose. And again, sometimes it's just kind of fun to kind of sit there and just snap the arms together. Great detail on the shirt of the figure. It wasn't until Series 5 when they finally got rid of the clothes and started giving him just bare chest and everything. You know how I feel about the clothing. I always feel like the clothing always gives it that extra appeal to it because it just gives more detail. So the Series 5, not my favorite, And I mean, of course, it's more playable than this, so this would be the least, or the least important figure. But aesthetically, it still looks pretty great. Again, the next Mega Superstar. You will notice there's no figure inside this card. So it is Ultimate Warrior. Generally, a Series 2 figure on card will cost you in the neighborhood of $200 to $250. I've been trying to hold out and find this figure on card for like a $130 price range just prior to making this video. So today is today's Thursday the 20th, I believe is the date. Thursday, July 20th. So I think yesterday I just threw out a random bid on a carded Series 2 Ultimate Warrior, and I honestly didn't think I'd win. It was like, I ended up selling for like $127. So yes, as of the making of this video, I did purchase an actual Series 2 figure sealed. But in the meantime, we'll just basically go off of what we show here. And this one has the Ultimate Slam, just like your Axe from Series 1, or your Hulk Hogan from Series 1. I call them all Gorilla Presses. Generally, with these little notations, they try to incorporate the wrestler into the naming of the action feature. Like I said, these figures here are not from my primary display. They're duplicates, and you'll notice here, like, he's got a broken finger, which is very common with these figures. We had the Series 1 Ultimate Warrior. Once we got the Series 2 Ultimate Warrior, not only was this the most played with Warrior figure, replacing that Series 1, but this was, for many decades, my all-time favorite Ultimate Warrior figure. And it wasn't until I started collecting or reacquiring Hasbros a couple years ago that I ever learned about the Series 3 Purple Ultimate Warrior. And of course, that one just jumps out as one of the single greatest action figures, period. So of course, that one nowadays has replaced this one. But you can't take away the nostalgia of what this figure brings to you. And like I said, this one not only doesn't have has a broken finger, but he doesn't have a working action. But essentially, what Axe from Demolition, what Hulk Hogan from Series 1, Ludwig Borga from Series 11, who else was it? Davey Boy Smith, British Bulldog Series 4. I mean, there's more figures than just that, but those are always the prime ones. I'm kind of looking at a few of them here that kind of stand out, where they just kind of do a gorilla press. And then you've got like Jim Duggan and Berserker and Macho Man and all these other figures where you just raise up the arms and they snap back down. Not this exact pose like this, but that snap is very common. Yeah, I mean, you want to put out your mega superstars. The guys that are going to sell. And Hogan and Warrior, as I mentioned previously, are probably the two wrestlers in WWF history that have sold more merchandise than anyone else. So you're going to try to release these guys as much as you possibly can. Huge upgrade for the Ultimate Warrior in Series 2 compared to the Series 1 release. Moving on to the second release of Macho Man Randy Savage. At this point, he was known as Macho King and had Sensational Sherry, or Queen Sherry, as his manager, replacing longtime manager and wife Elizabeth as manager. So this one, I haven't mentioned it, but there's quite a few of these box sets that do come with like little playing cards. I don't know if you can actually see it in there. So you got these little playing cards back here, which is pretty awesome. Comes with the Macho Masher. And that's just basically one of those little spinning moves. And we'll get to it. So he does come with crown and scepter. And again, new look at the background. In Series 3, I don't have a Series 3 carded Macho Man, but it's the exact same figure. Only difference is the back of the trunks, which we'll take a look at. So, you got Macho King Randy Savage. I've never been a huge fan of these extended arms. Why? when you feel this arm, I mean, just look at how floppy and loose that is. I mean, that right there is annoying. I mean, if these screws come out, the figure is essentially finished. My Series 4 Undertaker as a kid, one of the most played with action figures ever. I absolutely love that figure, and at one point, that figure had his arm right here. It fell off. So essentially, we're just wrestling with just this portion of the arm, and you know, you're basically playing with an amputated figure. So that kind of sucked. But if it wasn't for this floppiness, I mean, this would be a gorgeous figure. I mean, the lettering on the Macho King is absolute perfection. I mean, this figure, again, it's a spare. I mean, it doesn't have to be the most mint ever, but good looking figure. I'm trying to think if I enjoy the Series 1 or the Series 2 / Series 3 Macho Man better. I still want to say Series 1 because of the pose. I like it better, but it's kind of neck and neck. It's not like 75-25. It's more like a 55-45, 52-48 type of deal as to which one you like better. I might go with this one simply because of the accessories. And, you know, great positioning of the legs, and, you know, the right extended arm. It's not bad. It still makes it a very playable figure. Really enjoyable. If you remember, I believe it was the 1990, I want to say, Royal Rumble. So Queen Sherry had fought for Macho Man to get a match up against the Ultimate Warrior, and he basically shuts her down straight up. So Ultimate Warrior in that Royal Rumble was squaring off against Sergeant Slaughter for the heavyweight championship. And there's a point where Macho Man comes in and attacks him, and, you know, knocks him over with like a little with a big old lamp and everything. And later on, you see Ultimate Warrior in ring, and he's kind of dangling from like the second ropes. Macho King comes out of nowhere, absolutely shatters his scepter over the Ultimate Warrior's head, and, you know, Sergeant Slaughter just rolls over, basically puts an arm around him, bam, an easy pin. And Sergeant Slaughter defeated the Ultimate Warrior. And of course, what was it? Was it WrestleMania 7 or WrestleMania 8? I think it was WrestleMania 7, because I think 8 was with Sid Justice. That saw Hulk Hogan defeat Sergeant Slaughter to recapture the heavyweight championship. And I talked about it in the first series. At a time that saw Hulk Hogan, I mean, as much of a superstar as he was, obviously, maybe fans were just getting tired of having the same champion constantly. You know, you knew who was going to win straight up every time. You know, really not too much of a shocker to see who comes out victorious. So they wanted a new champion, so that's where Ultimate Warrior came in. But he just was a very unlikable person, and they had to get that belt off him as quickly as possible. He wasn't bringing in the sales the same way as Hogan. They weren't selling out arenas, etc. So it kind of made sense. And, you know, Ultimate Warrior was cut ties from the WWF multiple occasions. So that is when I look at this figure, that scene is always reminiscent in my eyes. And another matchup that I really loved, that I remembered as a kid, and I remember kind of tearing up about it, and I watched it recently, maybe some months ago. I don't remember if it was a Royal Rumble or if it was a WrestleMania. I want to say a WrestleMania video that I watched, and I'm assuming it was the Macho Man versus Warrior match. You know, the one where he dropped like 5 elbows on him and Warrior still kicked out and defeated him. And Queen Sherry comes in, freaks out on Macho Man, and starts whooping him down. You see Elizabeth out in the crowd. She jumps out that rail, comes storming down the aisle, and basically whoops on Sherry, tosses her out the ring. Just the part where, you know, they kind of embrace and he lifts her up on her shoulder and everything. Even kind of like talking about it, man, kind of makes you choke up a little bit. It was such a beautiful romantic scene, and, you know, you can understand and appreciate the beauty of it as a kid. As an adult, it really, you know, makes you, you know, really appreciate moments like that. Real storytelling, essentially. So I didn't mean to talk this long about the Macho Man. It's just a great figure and a lot of great stories, which is why he is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Coming at number 4 of this line, another figure I had as a kid. So I had Hogan, I had Warrior, and I had the $1 Million Man as a kid. And I think that's the primary reason why the Series 2 Ted DiBiase is my all-time favorite Hasbro version. I never had Series 1, and as you know, I didn't even know about Series 5 onward as a kid, so I never even saw the Series 9 release until I started collecting. Again, just like the Series 1, they come back with the $1 Million belt. I get it. They got that nice black winged eagle belt that comes with the wrestling ring. Most people only classify that as like the only belt that, WWF Hasbro ever came out with, which is a lie. I still think this is a much better belt. I have been trying to acquire the winged belt myself because I want it for the actual ring. Good looking figure, great looking figure, great. I like the little SummerSlam thing that they have. I think that was on the, that's on quite a few of these Series 2 cards. The win a trip to SummerSlam, little promotion up here. Beautiful looking figure, all over. So, $1 Million Man with a lot of figures with this body type. IRS obviously is another one. Trying to think who else has this body type, but right off the top, those are two ones that kind of stand out to me. And I'm looking at any other figures that have this essential body type. I don't know. $1 Million Man and IRS are obviously the two key points, and it's just a simple action. You lift the arm up and the leg stomps down. So I know from Series 10, the Giant Gonzalez has a similar feature as well. They call this one the $1 Million Stomp. So relatively easy right here. Just an awesome figure all around. Looks great. Much bigger, wider than the black suited Series 1 $1 Million Man. So the look is better. I like the action better. I've had this as a kid. It was, again, one of my most playable or played with figures. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this is one of those figures where the leg fell off and broke. So, like we had a, decapitated arm of, well, not decapitated. But once you had the arm chopped off of The Undertaker, you had a leg chopped off of the $1 Million Man. They weren't decapitated. They didn't lose their heads. Just a really fun figure, and I'm not going to mention any additional stories about $1 Million Man that I hadn't already mentioned in the previous video talking about this character. So, some of his highlights that I can remember as a kid, obviously the 1990 Royal Rumble, saw him and I think it was Coco Beware were like the first two in, and he immediately throws Coco out of the ring, and I'm like, I despise that because to me, it's just an absolute waste of a roster spot to see participants enter a Royal Rumble and basically get tossed within like the first 5 minutes. I think anyone that comes into a Rumble with less than 10 minutes in the ring, or if there's someone that comes in, especially if you got guys like the Giant Big Show, someone like that who comes in, you think, oh man, he's gonna come in and clear house, and he's basically thrown out by like a Brock Lesnar or Braun Strowman type or something. I'm like, again, a complete waste. You want to see a big guys like that do some damage, right? That's why Coco Beware, someone I really didn't mind as a kid, but as an adult, his antics, and I just think of him as more of a jobber than an actual superstar. That 90 Rumble, I think, saw $1 Million Man for like 52 minutes or something, so you never really got to appreciate just how amazing and talented the $1 Million Man actually was. In the, I think it was the AWA days, if I'm not mistaken, the Rat Pack, which saw Ted DiBiase, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Matt Osborne, tag team. And I've got some customs that were made for me that I'm bidding on, and I'm going to acquire those hopefully, and we should be here in the next 2 weeks or so once that auction ends and I'm able to pay for everything. That right there was an amazing tag team. I'm surprised you couldn't have put DiBiase and Duggan together in the WWF because I thought that would have been really awesome. Matt Osborne, Doink the Clown. Just kind of seeing his career. I don't know if anyone has gone and actually watched that documentary Dark Side of the Ring, I think it was, for Doink the Clown, or for Matt Osborne. And just seeing how Matt Osborne, basically kicked some fan in the face and that shattered his eye socket or something, insane. That meant, you can understand why a guy like that wasn't long to be tagging with a group of people. All right, we're at 4 figures, 20 minutes. So I'm gonna probably look at 2 more figures. Nah, I'm gonna try to make it even. So I'm gonna do probably 7 figures in this video, 8 figures in the next video, because the next video is gonna feature all the tag teams. So that should go by a little bit more quickly. All right, so number 5 is the Honky Tonk Man. Another figure with the SummerSlam promotion. And this one comes with the Rattle and Roll. And when I started collecting Hasbro's on card, obviously I finished them on card, or I finished them loose, and then I'm like, you know what? I want to at least have some carded. Honky Tonk Man was definitely on that list of my most coveted figures. And I think a lot of the figures that I did want to get on card essentially centered around those characters that came with accessories. So I believe when I did my review last year of top 10 least favorite, and then again came back with my top 10 most favorite, I think Honky Tonk Man was number 8 as my all-time favorite Hasbro figure. And I also did a top 16, I think it was, accessory list. And, his guitar accessory was number 1. So, awesome looking figure. The best play pose of the line. Awesome accessory. And, he just has, well, this one doesn't work, but essentially his arms are supposed to just come up and come down. Again, these are just spares. I mean, they don't have to be mint. They're going to get sold eventually anyways. Or maybe I'll send them out to like Rob or someone to customize. That's fine too. I've already sent him like a box of figures that, he's going to do some amazing work on. But, the whole Elvis look is absolutely amazing. Every time I heard, the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, it always got to me because I never really thought of Honky Tonk Man as like, not a jobber. I mean, definitely far superior than a Coco Beware, but I just never really pictured him as like the premier wrestler type, like on par with guys like Macho Man and Warrior, stuff like that, And his title reign ran about, what was it, like 400 days or something. So even if it wasn't, that far, it was still more than a year. And Intercontinental champions, I guess, didn't have as long tenured status as, heavyweight champions. You had guys like Sammartino and Backlund and Hogan who had like, multiple year runs as heavyweight champions. So I guess the Intercontinental champion never had that type of run as well. So to see Honky Tonk Man hold that title for over a year, I understand, what they're trying to say. What sucks about it is when he finally dropped the belt to Warrior, I heard that he was disappointed about, losing the belt, and he didn't want to do a full-on match, 20, 30-minute match, which is essentially what you think about, something that's actually competitive, especially when you're considering it to be a title match. So Warrior came in, beat him up. I don't think he even got out of a suit. Pinned him within like 30 seconds or so. It was insane. Just a complete waste of a matchup, to be honest. Warrior's your new Intercontinental Champion. So that was disappointing to kind of learn about that story, years later and everything, about how he was beat so easily. But still, I mean, a beloved character. He's not quite the level of Ted DiBiase as far as my most coveted, bad guys and whatnot, but for heels, he is definitely on my list of among my favorites that I actually enjoyed watching as a kid. And of course, later on, like the following year after this was made or so, Rhythm and Blues with Greg Valentine. Greg Valentine himself said, that he enjoyed Elvis, but he didn't really think that he'd be able to pull it off or whatnot. And that gimmick didn't really last for too long anyways. And to this day, it just feels really odd just seeing Greg Valentine with anything other than blonde hair. So, Honky Tonk Man, great figure. There is one custom out there. I think they've got like a Jake Roberts body or something. And, they just put a Honky Tonk Man head on it. So you actually have an actual custom Hasbro out there where people are actually making him fight in, like, ring gear. So anyone looking for those, I don't own one. I plan on getting one in the future. That is something to be on the lookout for. One of my favorite guys, one of my favorite wrestlers, but again, not what I would necessarily classify as a superstar, but Jim Duggan. We got the SummerSlam promotion, another figure with the accessories, and when I keep them kind of on Series 1 and Series 2 on my door, I have them situated the same way. Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, Ted DiBiase, followed by characters that come with accessories, followed by the non-accessory guys. And Jim Duggan, I've said it a million times, I think the Hacksaw Series 2 Jim Duggan figure is one of the best playable figures. Now, this particular figure is on my top 10 list of worst Hasbros of all time. But even back then when I made those videos, what did I say? I absolutely love all the Hasbro figures. So if you're going to put a top 10 list of worst figures, it's impossible to choose who you want on there. So you just got to look at the guys and think, okay, who do I enjoy more and for what reason? Because it's a very simple scheme. As far as color, blue trunks, blue knee pads, it was just a very plain figure in my eyes. So, of course, the Series 2 Duggan is going to be on my list among the worst figures. But, with that being said, if you're looking for like a burly, go-to playable figure, another one of those guys that has that little arm dropping action, I mean, this is just a fun figure all around. One of my favorite, what I would classify as most playable figures, or at least one of them. And they call it Hack Attack. Again, they always just got to incorporate the wrestler's name somehow into the actual action. Yeah. Now, when they came out with the Series 9 Hacksaw Jim Duggan, or what they would classify as the American Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the exact same figure. And once we look at that one, it's just blonde hair with, the American flag on his body. So, much more detail. And they replaced the hack with the 2x4 with the flag. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the hole was in his left hand, so that he can hold the flag. It just kind of slides right in there. I still keep, like, with my loose figure, another, custom 2x4. So it just looks great. That is the Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Again, right there, Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne as, a trio of your Rat Pack wrestlers from the AWA. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan, he's like, I'm not talking about it in this series with the Bushwhackers as well. In like other territories, they're like really brutal guys, kind of like your Bruiser Brody type, Not once you get to WWF, it's more, played down a little bit cartoony, as what these figures are kind of referred to a lot of the time, because it's centering towards kids for the most part. But he really is a brawler outside of WWF. You look at him and wrestle in other territories and stuff. Incredible piece overall. Just because I say it's one of the worst does not make this a bad figure, especially considering the line that it's part of. Alright, number 7. This guy is probably my least favorite LJN figure. Maybe second worst, only because, the Rick Rude from LJN, which is unplayable. He is also on my list of top 10 worst Hasbro action figures. And it is Superfly Jimmy Snuka. So, unlike the others, we don't have that little SummerSlam promotion. It comes with the Superfly Slam. As a kid, we had Hogan, Warrior, $1 Million Man, Honky Tonk Man. We had Jim Duggan, and we had Jimmy Snuka. And of course, Jimmy Snuka was going to see play, no doubt about it. I was sad to learn that Superfly was actually arrested or charged. Or maybe he wasn't charged. I don't remember the whole story. But I I think that he was part of a death of a relative. Maybe like he killed his wife or something. Actually, after this video, I'm going to go back and actually do research on that, because I heard this story a long while ago, and I never had no idea about that. I guess that may have been one of the reasons why he left WWF at that time. And if that's the case, kind of like what you hear about the Ultimate Warrior and, you know, his behavior, you know, around the locker room, if that story is true about Superfly, that's going to make me lose a lot of respect for the particular wrestler himself. But, you know, I'm sure if he was never arrested, then, you know, there's probably more to the story than just that. But another one of those hideous figures that have fused legs. You know, you got this little bump on the back. You know, the whole idea is you push it down and, you know, again, nobody's sitting there and pushing this down, letting the guy go fly at anybody. There's that. The open hand, which is terrible. I don't know what's up with this whole little gang sign he's got going on here. The best thing I could think about doing with this guy is kind of like what Bruce Beefcake does in Series 1. Kind of get those fingers underneath the chin and kind of do like a punch knockout or something. A character that got a lot of play, no doubt, but it's not exactly one of my favorite figures. And I don't know what it is about these figures with the fused legs. Like, you look at the head shrinkers out of Series 10. They got fused legs. They have much heavier top part of the body. Those guys do not fall over at all. But then you've got like the Rockers and Jimmy Snuka, even the Series 2 Hogan, which doesn't even have fused legs, you know, or constantly tipping over. You always got to like kind of tape their feet down or something to keep them in place. It's kind of stupid. I did create two full listings, or two full collections. One collection was my personal loose collection, and because I had so many duplicates, I started buying the loose figures that I needed so I could complete a second collection. And the goal was to put that collection on eBay and sell them all at one single time. And obviously with a high price tag, you just knew they weren't going to sell right away, but I was hoping eventually, and it just never happened. Like, you might get some watchers or a lot of viewers, but even when I started knocking off like $800 to like $2,000 off the price tag, you know, when I send my offers, nobody was really jumping on it. After it being up for like over a year, I'm like, you know what, forget this. I'm going to break them down into individual boxes, which they were already done. I had each series in individual boxes. I had those in a much larger box. I started listing them individually, and I was able to sell a few listings. Right now, there might be certain figures that I get in lots if I'm looking for a particular figure. I think I'm going to try and create another secondary collection again, but I'm only going to go for the figures I actually care about, and this definitely would not be on my list of most coveted. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know what? I'm going to look at one more, because this will be 8 now and 7 next time. Where are we at? You know what? We're at 33 minutes, so I'm going to end the video here. We'll only look at the first 7, and then we'll look at the last 8 figures in the next video. I'm going to go upstairs, take a little lunch break, and I'll come back down here and film part 2 of Series 2. And that one, with the tag teams, it shouldn't take nearly as long. It should not be another 30-minute video. Hopefully it won't be. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye, everyone.